So, yes, I wanted to talk about this a particular article that's been quite viral in the last few days. It first came to me in, I think it was a press release, or maybe it was this particular article from the Science Daily with the header "Pupils can learn more effectively through stories than activities." It's clear that the summary here, storytelling, the oldest form of teaching, is the most effective way of teaching primary school children about evolution, say researchers. And to be honest, I think the whole concept of storytelling, I think there's quite a lot of research on this. Daniel Willingham has written a lot about this as well. I think that's quite convincing. But as I normally, if I get press releases or articles like this, I try to unpick the actual article that's behind it. So towards the end, we can see that it's an article from Science of Learning, from Nature, which of course is a high esteem and big pedigree. So I think lots of people, well, rightly so perhaps, think, well, Nature, there must be something in it. And here we can see that particular article in its HTML format. And what is nice about it is that it's actually open access, so everyone can approach it. And I thought, well, a video going through this article would actually perhaps be quite useful. Everyone can look at the article. So it downloaded the PDF. You can do the same thing, and that is the one that I'm looking at here. PDF of the underlying study, NPG, Science of Learning, nature.com/NPG, etc., etc. And here again in the title we can see a couple of keywords. It's a randomized controlled trial for assessment of active human-centered learning, finds teacher-centric, non-human teaching of evolution optimal, right? So that's relatively clear. And also when we go to the actual abstract, we see something similar. We need to unpick this article, of course. They're from scholars from the University of Bath, Milner Center of Evolution, and in a nutshell you could say that there is a series of lessons about evolution, and they have been delivered in 4 different conditions. There wasn't really a control group where they did nothing or where they did something else. These were all lesson series done in a different way. So how can we unpack this? Well, it starts with an introduction, and what I thought was quite interesting is that throughout this article they basically constantly express their surprise about certain findings, and I think that might have something to do with why it actually was viral on the web. Some surprise about why they actually were surprised about this. And especially it will revolve around this student-centered or teacher-centered factor, which clearly is a big thing. I've been involved in lots of social media discussions about this. So, if the headline indeed says teacher-centric is optimal and student-centric isn't, which is sort of the implication some take out of it, then that would be something, of course. Introduction, I would say a little bit low on educational research, but fine, let's go to the actual nitty-gritty further down and unpick a little bit what it's all about. So it's a randomized controlled trial. There are 4 different groups. You can see them here. They call them schemes of work, which I think aligns quite nicely with the way many schools call these sort of series of lessons. And there are 4 schemes of work. And lessons 1 and lessons 3 were all the same in all conditions, but then lesson 2 and 4 were varied. And they were varied in 2 different ways, so that's why you needed 2 by 2 for separate conditions. And you can see that one distinction is that schemes of work 1 and 2 are in lesson 2 have a student-centered hands-on hunting activity, and the second one as well, while the lesson 2 for the other one was a teacher-centered PowerPoint based on a picture book. Actually, the links are in the article so you can follow them up, about investigating natural selection in peppered moths. And the 4th one also had this teacher-centered stuff. But then they varied in the 4th one, where you had a non-human activity with trilobites, and you had a human-centered activity as well. So, 4 conditions that were being used. And then previously here in this table, they already predict what they expect will be happening. And I already said that they express a lot of surprise that one of them is doing really well, because they base this on a literature base where they thought that the hands-on student-centered activity would work much better than the teacher-centered one. And I think that, well, I would say that that might be a little bit unfounded before you even do the actual experiment. But the whole article is peppered with, this is going to work better, and then surprise when it actually wasn't the only one that worked really well. In lots of these sort of natural science type journals, the methods actually are not in the main text, so you have to scroll down after the results. They actually do the methods, often in a smaller font. I don't really understand why, because these methods are essential to actually judge the quality, reliability and validity of a study. But if you're interested, then actually there is a lot of information, interesting information about the module, the materials. Here you can see something about the materials for lesson 1, and also about lesson 2. Here you can see this is the sort of hands-on student activity for that condition, and also the way that it was evaluated. And these pictures give this one, by the way, the sort of human-centered lesson 4, and the non-human-centered lesson 4. So that actually gives a lot of information, and it's great that it's in here, because sometimes you are wondering what did they actually do in a certain lesson, and that's quite clear. I think it should have been part of the main body text, but at least it's in there. But then, of course, the results, because go back to this header. It was clear that it says that teacher-centric is most optimal, and to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised about this conclusion, because if you scroll down to the actual results over here, and I'm really only talking about effectiveness at the moment, you could look at these graphs, but maybe more insightful this actual table with effect sizes for the 4 conditions, the 4 schemes of work. You actually see that in the first tranche, 3 had the highest one, and 3 was the teacher-centered and non-human condition, let's call it like that, and the second one was this one. But in the second tranche, because they did the same test in 2 tranches for replicability, you actually see that the second one has 0.66 and the third one 0.51. So both 2 and 3 do equally well, according to this table. And this is actually something that they confirm. I think it's here, strikingly. In neither tranche do we find a significant difference between scheme of work 2 and 3. And they refer to another table as well. So they really, I think, when it comes to effectiveness, scheme of work 2 and 3 do equally well, when actually the third one is the one that is basically being reported all the time, the teacher-centered one with non-human activity in lesson 4. They look at interaction effects as well. Here you can see some plots where, again, you can see that 2 and 3 are the ones on top of 1 and 4. And they look at other things like confidence, etc., etc. And there, perhaps you could argue that maybe scheme of 3 has the edge when it comes to confidence, for example. But, all these press releases that I've seen and lots of tweets and social media, etc., really emphasize the effectiveness of these different schemes of work. And even if a lot of other stuff is happening here with regard to confidence and all kinds of other things, when we get to the final part of the main text, which is in the discussion, you can see that actually the text really is quite balanced. It says, given the replicability of the strong performance of a scheme of work 2 and 3, so both of them, and also further down here, in this context, we recommend scheme of work 2 and 3 could be well defended as effective methods of delivery. So again, 2 and 3 are being heralded as the most effective. And also, by the way, if you go even further back, because this article is based on a thesis from the first author, Buchan, as you can see here. And you look at this particular text, which of course is a very long document, it's a thesis, then there actually is a section in there that also confirms this. Schemes of work 2 and 3 were found to be more effective relative to other programs of instruction. They say something about the reciprocal interaction between pairs of main activities, so they work into each other. The teacher-centered Peppered Moth PowerPoint activity was more effective, whilst conversely the more student-centered one was more effective when you combined it with this more human-centered activity in lesson 4. So, and then they say, well, we don't know the exact nature of the relationship yet, so this needs to be studied, and there is some speculation or some thoughts in the actual paper. But my main point being here that I was actually quite surprised that when you look at the press releases and when you look at the title of this, that the focus is very much on this teacher-centered element. Look, stories, I think, told by a teacher work really well. We know quite a lot of research on this, and that's all perfectly fine. Just simply honing in on the results of this randomized controlled trial, it seems to me that actually 2 schemes of work have been working. One which was teacher-centered and one which was student-centered. And the latter needs to be mentioned, I think, as well, if you want to give a faithful representation of what's in the study. Happy to discuss all of this again, of course, and more faithfully. Happy to also receive comments that maybe I'm seeing it all wrong, but these were just some thoughts about this particularly viral article on social media. Thank you.